Daehyun stood at the observation window of the Sovereign's Might, staring at the stars. He had been doing this for 3 months now, ever since he was assigned to this massive warship. The view never changed. The routine never changed. Nothing ever changed. He was a corporal in the Earth Special Forces, trained in combat, survival, and tactics. But here on this alien ship, he was nothing more than decoration. The other soldiers barely looked at him. When they did, their eyes showed something between pity and amusement. To them, humans were weak, small, soft, not real warriors. The Galactic Union had accepted Earth 50 years ago. They said it was an honor. They said humanity would learn from the advanced species of the galaxy. What they really meant was that humans would stay quiet and grateful for being noticed at all. Daehyun touched the small flag patch on his uniform. The Korean flag looked bright against the dull gray fabric. He remembered his training back on Earth. His instructors had been tough, pushing him beyond his limits. They taught him that being underestimated was sometimes an advantage. He wondered if they knew how right they were. Still wasting time here, human? A deep voice rumbled behind him. Daehyun turned to see Commander Velthar. The Krell officer was nearly 3 meters tall, with blue-gray skin and 4 arms. His species had been warriors for thousands of years, or so he claimed. He liked to remind everyone of this fact, especially humans. "Just observing, sir," Daehyun replied, keeping his voice neutral. "Observing," Velthar repeated with a snort. "Your people are good at watching, not so good at doing." He walked away, his heavy footsteps echoing down the corridor. Daehyun's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. He had learned that arguing was pointless. Instead, he spent his free time learning everything about the ship. He memorized the layouts, the systems, the maintenance tunnels that the other soldiers never bothered with. He studied the security protocols, the weapon systems, the emergency procedures. Not because he thought he would need them, just because he had nothing else to do. There were only 3 other humans on the ship. Dr. Hana worked in the medical bay studying alien biology. Lieutenant Bora was assigned to engineering, though mostly she just watched the automated systems run themselves. The 4th human had transferred off the ship last month, requesting a posting back on Earth. Daehyun didn't blame him. The alarm started without warning. It was a sound Daehyun had only heard in drills. A high-pitched wail that meant one thing: enemy contact. His training kicked in immediately. He ran toward his station, but the ship shuddered violently before he could get there. The lights flickered and died, replaced by dim red emergency lighting. "All hands to battle stations," Velthar's voice boomed through the speakers. "We are under attack by Vrax forces." "This is not a drill!" The Vrax. Even Daehyun knew that name. They were the enemy, an empire that wanted to conquer the galaxy. The Union had been fighting them for 2 years, but the battles had always been far away from this sector. Until now. The ship shuddered again, harder this time. Daehyun grabbed the wall to steady himself. Through the windows, he could see explosions in the distance. Enemy ships, dozens of them, swarming around the Sovereign's Might like angry insects. Then everything went wrong at once. The ship's main systems went offline. The defensive shields disappeared. The automated weapons stopped firing. Even the artificial gravity wavered, making Daehyun's stomach lurch. The Vrax had somehow killed all the ship's technology in minutes. "They're boarding us," someone screamed over the emergency channel. Vrax troops in Section 7 and 12. Daehyun heard the sounds of weapons fire echoing through the ship's hull. The Vrax were inside. The ship's automated defenses would have stopped them easily, but those defenses were dead now. The Union soldiers would have to fight the old way, face to face. He reached his station and grabbed his weapon from the locker. It was a standard Union pulse rifle, designed to be simple enough that even humans could use it. Daehyun checked the charge and felt his training take over. His hands were steady. His breathing was controlled. He had been preparing for this his entire life, even if nobody believed it. "All non-combat personnel to evacuation pods," Velthar's voice commanded. "Repeat, all non-combat personnel evacuate immediately." Daehyun's communicator beeped. It was a direct message from the commander. "Corporal Daehyun, you are ordered to evacuate. Proceed to Pod Bay 3 immediately." He stared at the message. They were ordering him to leave, not because he was valuable and needed to be saved, but because they didn't think he could help. He was just a human after all. Weak, useless, better off running away. Something cold settled in Daehyun's chest. It wasn't anger exactly. It was determination. He had spent 3 months being ignored, dismissed, treated like a child playing soldier. Now, when it actually mattered, they still didn't want him. He deleted the message. The communicator beeped again, more insistent. "Corporal, acknowledge your orders." Dae-hyun turned off the device. If they wanted to court-martial him later, fine. But he wasn't running. He had trained for war his entire adult life. Earth had prepared him for this, even if the galaxy thought his training was primitive and outdated. He moved through the corridors carefully, using the shadows and the red emergency lights for cover. The sounds of battle grew louder. He could hear the Vrax troops now, their harsh voices barking orders in their own language. He could hear Union soldiers screaming, weapons firing, and the heavy thud of bodies hitting the floor. Dae-hyun reached a junction and peered around the corner. 3 Vrax soldiers stood there, their backs to him. They were tall and heavily armored, carrying weapons that looked powerful enough to punch through walls. They were laughing about something, confident and careless. He studied them for a moment, his mind working. The Union soldiers fought the Vrax head-on, relying on their technology and shields. But those were gone now. The Union troops were losing because they didn't know how to fight without their advantages. But Dae-hyun did. He had learned from Earth's history, from wars fought long before humanity reached the stars. Wars where the weaker side had to be smarter, faster, more ruthless. Wars where being underestimated was the greatest weapon of all. Dae-hyun checked his rifle one more time. Then he stepped around the corner and started fighting his war. A war the galaxy had forgotten how to fight. A war the Vrax were about to learn the hard way. The enemy had ignored him. That was their first mistake. Their second mistake was giving him a battlefield. The first Vrax soldier died before he knew what was happening. Dae-hyun fired 3 shots into the gap between his helmet and armor, right at the neck joint. The soldier fell without a sound. The other 2 spun around, raising their weapons, but Dae-hyun was already moving. He had learned this technique in training. Never stay in one place. Never let the enemy predict your next move. He rolled behind a support beam as energy blasts scorched the wall where he had been standing. The Vrax were strong and well-armed, but they expected enemies to stand and fight. They didn't expect someone to use the environment, to hide and strike and disappear. Dae-hyun pulled a grenade from his belt. It was a simple concussion device, nothing fancy. He tossed it high, letting it bounce off the ceiling. The Vrax soldiers looked up, confused. In that moment of distraction, Dae-hyun leaned out and shot them both. They dropped, their expensive armor useless against someone who aimed for the weak points. He stood over the bodies, breathing hard. 3 enemies down. Hundreds more on the ship. This was impossible, but Dae-hyun had learned long ago that impossible just meant you had to be more creative. He dragged the bodies into a storage room and took their weapons. Then he opened a maintenance panel in the wall and climbed into the tunnels. These narrow passages ran through the entire ship, used by repair crews to access pipes and wires. The Vrax wouldn't know about them. Most Union soldiers didn't even know about them, but Dae-hyun did. He had spent weeks exploring every forgotten corner of the ship. Now that knowledge might keep him alive. He crawled through the tunnels using a small light to see. The sounds of battle echoed through the metal walls. He could hear Vrax troops moving in groups, clearing rooms, securing sections of the ship. They were efficient and professional. They had done this many times before. Dae-hyun found a panel that looked down into a corridor. Through the grating, he could see 5 Vrax soldiers setting up some kind of equipment. It looked like a communications device. They were probably trying to coordinate with their ships outside. He studied the corridor's layout. There was a power conduit running along the ceiling. If he could overload it, the explosion would take out the Vrax and their equipment. But he needed time to rewire it properly. Time. That was something guerrilla fighters needed most. Time to set traps. Time to plan. Time to make the enemy nervous. Dae-hyun opened his pack and pulled out everything he had. Emergency rations, medical supplies, spare power cells, and one very old tool that nobody else on the ship carried. A simple knife. The aliens thought knives were primitive, useless in an age of energy weapons. Dae-hyun knew better. He used the knife to strip wires from the conduit. It took 15 minutes of careful work, but the Vrax below never looked up. Why would they? Their sensors would have detected any threat. Except Dae-hyun wasn't using any electronic devices. He was just a man with a knife and knowledge of basic engineering. When the trap was ready, he climbed back through the tunnels to a safe distance. Then he used his rifle to shoot the conduit he had rewired. The explosion was immediate and violent. The Vrak soldiers didn't have time to scream. Daehyun kept moving. He found another group of Vraks and used a different approach. He vented the atmosphere in their section, watching through a window as they scrambled for their helmets. He shot them one by one as they struggled. It wasn't honorable or fair. It was war. After an hour of this, he heard voices speaking Korean. He followed the sound to a locked door in the engineering section. When he opened it, he found Bora inside, armed and ready to fight. "Daehyun," she said, lowering her weapon. "I thought everyone evacuated." "They tried to make me," he replied. "You?" "I was already here when the attack started. The Vraks locked down this section, but they haven't found me yet." She looked at him more carefully, noticing the blood on his uniform. "Have you been fighting them?" "A few," Daehyun said. "Can you access the ship's systems from here?" Bora nodded. "Secondary systems only. The main computer is completely fried, but I can see where the Vraks are moving. I can control some environmental systems. Doors, lights, life support in certain areas." "That's perfect," Daehyun said, his mind already working. "We can use that. Make them think the ship is haunted. Make them paranoid." Bora stared at him. "You want to wage psychological warfare against an army with 2 people? "It's what humans do best," Daehyun said. "We're good at making enemies afraid." They spent the next hour planning. Bora would monitor the Vraks' movements and control the ship's systems. Daehyun would be the hunter, striking from the shadows. Together, they would make the Vrak soldiers scared to walk through their own captured ship. The first target was a squad moving through the medical bay. Bora shut off all the lights in that section. In the darkness, Daehyun moved like a ghost. He used his knife instead of his gun, killing silently. When the lights came back on, 6 Vrak soldiers were dead, arranged in a circle. Their weapons were gone. Their helmets were stacked in a pyramid. "Why did you do that?" Bora asked over the communicator. "Why arrange them like that?" "So their friends will find them," Daehyun said. "So they'll know this wasn't random. Someone is hunting them deliberately. Someone who has time to make it artistic." "That's dark," Bora said quietly. "That's war," Daehyun replied. "The kind of war Earth remembers. The kind the galaxy forgot." They found more survivors over the next few hours. Dr. Hana was hiding in a storage room with 3 other crew members. Tak, a young alien soldier, had been left for dead but was still breathing. They brought everyone back to the engineering section, which was becoming a small fortress. "How many Vraks have you killed?" Tak asked weakly. He had a wound in his side, but Dr. Hana was treating it. 23, Daehyun said. "Maybe 24. I'm not sure about the last one." Tak's eyes widened. "By yourself?" That's not possible. You're just a human." "Exactly," Daehyun said. "They keep thinking that too. It's why they keep dying." Bora pulled up a map of the ship on her screen. Red dots showed Vrak's positions. There were still hundreds of them. "They're starting to move differently," she said. "Larger groups. More cautious. I think they're getting scared." "Good," Daehyun said. "Scared enemies make mistakes." Dr. Hana looked up from treating Tak. "What's the plan here, Daehyun?" "We can't kill them all. There are too many." "We don't need to kill them all," he replied. "We just need to make them think they can't win. We need to break their confidence. Make them doubt their commanders. Make them want to leave the ship more than they want to control it." "That's brilliant," Tak said softly. "We always thought humans were weak because you had no natural weapons. No armor, no strength. But you learned to fight with your minds instead." "We learned to survive," Daehyun corrected. "Earth taught us that being the biggest and strongest doesn't matter if you're not the smartest." He checked his weapons and prepared to go back out. The Vraks had made a mistake when they boarded this ship. They had expected easy prey. Instead, they had found something the galaxy had forgotten existed: a human soldier who knew how to wage real war. And he was just getting started. The message came through on the emergency channel. It was the Vrak's commander, his voice cold and angry. "Attention, human gorilla. I know you can hear this. I am Warlord Crixus, and I am giving you one chance to surrender." Daehyun sat in the engineering section, listening. Bora had the audio playing through the speakers. Everyone was silent, waiting to hear what came next. "We have captured 47 of your crew," Crixus continued, "including your commander Velthar. If you do not present yourself to me within 1 hour, I will execute them. All of them. You have caused me significant losses, human. But you are only one creature. You cannot hide forever. Surrender now and they live. Continue your cowardice and their blood is on your hands. The transmission ended. The silence in the room was heavy. Don't do it, Bora said immediately. It's a trap. They'll kill you and the prisoners anyway. We can't just let them die, Dr. Hana protested. Those are our people. Our friends. If Daehyun surrenders, we lose our only advantage, Bora argued. The Vraks are scared of him. That's the only reason we're still alive. Without him, they'll sweep this ship clean in hours. Daehyun sat quietly, thinking. His instructors back on Earth had taught him about impossible choices. In war, sometimes every option led to pain. The question was which option led to the least pain, or which option gave you a chance to win later. I'm not surrendering, he said finally. But I'm not letting them die either. How? Tak asked. The young alien was sitting up now, his wound bandaged. Those two things seem impossible to do together. We make them think I'm surrendering, Daehyun said. But it's actually an attack. He pulled up the ship's layout on Bora's screen. Where are they keeping the prisoners? Bora pointed to a large room near the command center. The main cargo bay. It's the only space big enough to hold that many people. Heavy Vrax presence around it, at least 30 guards. And the command center? Daehyun asked. That's where Crixus is. He's fortified it. Maybe 50 soldiers with him, all elite troops. Daehyun studied the map, his mind working through possibilities. Tak, you said you know Vrax military protocols. What happens when a commander calls for a surrender? Tak thought for a moment. The prisoner would be brought directly to the commander. It's a ritual, a way to demonstrate dominance. The commander would have his senior officers present to witness it. So they'll want me in the command center, Daehyun said. That means pulling guards from other areas. Bora, can you cause system failures throughout the ship? Random ones in different sections? Yes, she said slowly, understanding his plan. I can make it look like the ship's systems are failing on their own. The Vraks will have to spread out to investigate and secure those areas. Do it gradually, Daehyun said. Make them think it's just damage from the battle. And when I give the signal, trigger everything at once. Every system failure you can manage. I want chaos. I want them blind and confused. This is insane, Dr. Hana said. You're walking into a room with 50 armed soldiers. Even with a distraction, they'll kill you. Daehyun smiled, but it wasn't a happy expression. They'll try, but I won't be unarmed. I'll just be carrying weapons they can't detect. He went to his pack and pulled out several items. Chemical compounds from the medical bay. Metal pieces that could be assembled into simple weapons. A lighter string, nothing electronic. Nothing that would show up on a scanner. The Vraks rely on their technology too much, he said. They scan for energy weapons, explosives, electronic devices. But they forget about the old ways. The simple ways. Before he left, Daehyun sat down and closed his eyes. He thought about his childhood in Seoul. His mother who had cried when he joined the military. His father who had served before him and understood why he had to go. He thought about his training. The instructors who had prepared him for war. He thought about the last 3 months on this ship, being ignored and dismissed. He had joined the Galactic Union military to prove that humans were worthy, to show that Earth deserved respect. Now he had that chance. But the cost might be his life. He opened his eyes and stood. Bora, start the system failures in 30 minutes. Tak, if this works, you'll need to help the prisoners get to safety. Dr. Hana, be ready to treat wounded. A lot of wounded. And if it doesn't work? Bora asked quietly. Then keep fighting, Daehyun said. Keep making them afraid. Keep being the ghost that haunts this ship. Eventually, Union reinforcements will come. You just need to survive until then. He walked to the door, then stopped and looked back. Thank you. All of you. For not treating me like I was useless. For believing a human could make a difference. You already have made a difference, Tak said. You've changed how I see humans. How I see courage. Go teach the Vraks the same lesson. Daehyun left the engineering section and made his way through the maintenance tunnels. He contacted the Vraks on the emergency channel. This is Corporal Daehyun. I accept your terms.
I will surrender myself in exchange for the prisoners. Crixus's voice came back immediately triumphant.
A wise decision, human. Come to the command center. Come alone and unarmed. Any deception and the prisoners die. Understood, Daehyun said. He climbed out of the tunnels in a corridor near the command center. Vrak soldiers immediately surrounded him, weapons raised. They scanned him for weapons and found nothing. They didn't search him physically. Why would they? Their scanners were perfect, or so they thought. They marched him through the corridors. Daehyun noted everything. Guard positions, equipment locations, structural weaknesses. His mind cataloged it all, turning the environment into a weapon. The command center doors opened. Inside, Warlord Crixus stood waiting. He was massive even for a Vrax. His armor was decorated with symbols of rank and victory. Around him stood his officers, all watching with interest. "So," Crixus said, studying Daehyun, "the ghost that has haunted my troops. You are smaller than I expected. How did you kill so many of my soldiers?" "By being underestimated," Daehyun said calmly. "By everyone, including you," Crixus laughed. Defiant to the end. "I respect that. You have shown me that humans are more dangerous than we believed. We will not make this mistake again. After I finish here, we will target Earth itself. Your entire species will be crushed, so they can never produce another warrior like you." "You still don't understand," Daehyun said. "I'm not special. I'm just a regular soldier. Earth has millions like me. Billions of humans who learned to survive on a planet that tried to kill us. You think I'm dangerous? I'm nothing compared to what humanity can do when you threaten our home." "Bold words for a prisoner," Crixus said, "but words won't save you now." "I'm not trying to save myself," Daehyun said. "I'm trying to save my crew. That was the deal." "Yes, about that," Crixus said, his voice turning cold. "I lied. The prisoners will die. You will die, and I will use recordings of this moment to break the spirit of the Galactic Union. They will see that even their most dangerous human was helpless before Vrax might." Daehyun smiled. It was the smile of someone who had expected this. "You made a mistake," he said quietly. "What mistake?" Crixus demanded. "You gave me a battlefield to work with." At that moment, every light in the command center went out. The gravity fluctuated wildly. Doors sealed randomly throughout the ship. Alarms blared from a dozen different systems. Bora had triggered everything at once, turning the Sovereign's might into a mechanical nightmare. And in the darkness of the command center, Daehyun reached into his pockets and began to fight his war. Chaos erupted in the darkness. The Vrax soldiers shouted in confusion, their night vision systems failing along with everything else. But Daehyun had trained for combat in the dark. He didn't need technology to see. He needed only his memory of the room's layout and his target's positions. He pulled out a small glass container filled with chemicals Dr. Hana had prepared. When he smashed it against the floor, it released a thick smoke that made the Vrax cough and stumble. Their advanced armor filtered most toxins, but this wasn't a poison. It was just simple smoke designed to create more confusion. In the chaos, Daehyun moved. He had assembled a simple weapon from metal pieces in his pocket. It was basically a sharp spike attached to a handle. Primitive, brutal, effective. The Vrax were looking for energy signatures and explosives. They never expected someone to attack with something humans had been using for thousands of years. He struck at the weak points in their armor, joints, neck seals, anywhere the plates didn't quite meet. The Vrax fell one by one, before they even understood what was happening. Their weapons fired randomly, hitting their own soldiers in the confusion. Emergency lights flickered on, casting red shadows. Crixus stood in the center of the room, his weapon drawn. Bodies of his officers lay around him. His eyes found Daehyun through the smoke. "Clever," the warlord said. "Very clever. But now you face me directly. I am not like my soldiers. I have fought for 30 years. I have conquered 12 worlds. You are just one small human with a knife." "That's all I need," Daehyun said and ran. He wasn't running away. He was running toward the door, toward the corridors, toward the battlefield he had chosen. Crixus roared in anger and chased him. The warlord was fast despite his size. His enhanced body could move at incredible speeds. But Daehyun wasn't trying to outrun him. He was leading him into a trap. Throughout the ship, Bora's sabotage had created complete chaos. Vrax soldiers were running everywhere, trying to secure failing systems. The guards at the cargo bay had been pulled away to deal with emergencies. Tak and the other survivors took advantage, overpowering the few remaining guards and freeing the prisoners. Commander Velthar stumbled out of the cargo bay, weak but alive. "What's happening?" he demanded. "The human is happening," Tak said, helping support him. "Daehyun, he's fighting the entire Vrax force by himself. Impossible, Velthar said. Then he heard the sounds of battle echoing through the corridors. Where is he? Fighting Warlord Crixus, Tak said, leading him through the damaged sections of the ship. Velthar's eyes widened. He's going to Section 9, the area we depressurized during the initial attack. If he can seal Crixus in there, he knows exactly what he's doing, Tak said with something like awe in his voice. In Section 9, Daehyun ran through corridors he had memorized weeks ago. Behind him, Crixus was closing the distance. The warlord fired his weapon, but Daehyun ducked and weaved, using every piece of cover. He wasn't trying to fight yet. He was exhausting his enemy, making him angry, making him careless. Stand and fight, coward, Crixus roared. Why? Daehyun called back. You're doing exactly what I want. Following me exactly where I want you to go. Crixus realized the trap too late. They had entered a section with hull breaches. Daehyun had been leading him to a specific room, one he had prepared earlier. As the warlord charged through the doorway, Daehyun hit a manual control. Emergency bulkheads slammed down, sealing the room. The outer hull panels, already damaged, gave way. Air began rushing out into space. The room was depressurizing rapidly. Daehyun was on the safe side of the bulkhead, wearing an emergency suit he had grabbed on the way. Crixus was trapped in the depressurizing room. The warlord's armor would protect him for a while, but not forever. Through the small window in the bulkhead, Daehyun could see Crixus struggling against the pull of escaping air. The warlord looked at him with something like understanding in his eyes. Daehyun activated the communication system. You can still survive this. Order your troops to surrender. I'll seal the breach and save you. Crixus laughed even as his armor began to fail. A Vrax warlord does not surrender to lesser beings. I chose to fight you with honor. I will die with honor. This is the warrior's way. Then die, Daehyun said quietly and sealed the final breach. He didn't watch. He had killed many enemies today, but he took no joy in it. This was war, and war was ugly, and necessary and terrible all at once. With their commander dead, the Vrax forces began to fall apart. Some tried to fight on, but they were leaderless and demoralized. The freed Union prisoners, armed with captured weapons, fought back. Bora controlled the ship's systems, locking doors and trapping Vrax soldiers in sections they couldn't escape from. Within 2 hours, it was over. The remaining Vrax surrendered. The Sovereign's might was back under Union control, though heavily damaged and filled with bodies from both sides. Daehyun made his way back to the command center. He was exhausted, covered in blood and dirt, moving on pure willpower. When he entered, he found Commander Velthar there, trying to restore the ship's main systems. The commander looked up and stood. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. Then Velthar did something Daehyun had never seen him do before. He bowed. I was wrong about you, Velthar said. About all humans. I thought you were weak because you had no natural weapons. I thought you were primitive because you didn't rely on technology. I was a fool. You weren't the only one, Daehyun said tiredly. The whole galaxy thinks that. Not anymore, Velthar said. When I report what happened here, everything changes. You saved this ship. You saved all of us. And you did it in a way no one else could have. Bora arrived, looking almost as exhausted as Daehyun felt. We've secured all sections. 43 crew casualties, but over 200 survived because of you. Daehyun felt the weight of those numbers. 43 dead. People with families, with friends, with lives that were now over. He had saved the majority, but the cost was still terrible. There's something else, Velthar said, pulling up data on a surviving screen. We recovered Vrax communication logs. This attack wasn't random. It was a test. A test for what? Daehyun asked. For their invasion of the core Union systems. They've been studying our tactics, our technology, our defenses. They found weaknesses everywhere. Their electronic warfare can cripple our fleets in minutes. They were confident they would win easily. But, Bora prompted. But they didn't account for humans, Velthar said. Their reports show complete confusion about how this ship survived. How one soldier could cause so much damage. They don't understand human warfare because nothing like it exists in the modern galaxy. Daehyun understood immediately. We're the unknown variable. The thing they can't predict or prepare for. Exactly, Velthar said. I'm sending my full report to Union High Command. Complete combat recordings. Analysis of your tactics, everything. They need to understand what you did here. They won't like it, Daehyun said. Admitting that humans can do something they can't. They don't have to like it, Velthar said firmly. They just have to accept it. Because if they want to survive the Vrax, they need to learn from you. They need to remember how to fight without relying only on technology. They need to become more like humans. Dr. Hana entered the command center. Daehyun, you need medical attention. You have 3 broken ribs and multiple lacerations. Later, he said. First, we need to secure the ship completely and make sure all the prisoners are safe. The human doesn't know when to rest, Velthar said, but there was respect in his voice now, not mockery. Daehyun looked out the command center window at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Vrax were planning their invasion. Somewhere out there, the Union was unprepared for what was coming, and somewhere out there, Earth waited, full of humans who had survived millennia of war and hardship. The galaxy was about to learn what humans could do when given a reason to fight, and Daehyun suspected nothing would ever be the same again. 2 weeks after the battle, Daehyun stood in the Grand Council chamber of the Galactic Union. He had never imagined being in this place. The chamber was enormous, with representatives from hundreds of species gathered in a circular arrangement. At the center was a platform where speakers addressed the assembly. Daehyun was on that platform now, still wearing his uniform with the Korean flag patch. His ribs had healed thanks to advanced medical treatment, but he still felt the aches from the battle. Those would probably stay with him for a while. Corporal Daehyun, the council speaker, said. She was a Quellan with silver skin and wise eyes. You have been summoned to brief us on the events aboard the Sovereign's Might. Commander Velthar has submitted a full report, but the council wishes to hear directly from you about your tactics. Daehyun could feel hundreds of eyes on him. Many looked skeptical. Others looked curious. A few looked openly hostile. He understood why. His actions had challenged everything the Union believed about warfare and about humans. I'll be honest, he began, his voice steady. I didn't do anything revolutionary. I used tactics that humans have known for thousands of years. Guerrilla warfare. Psychological operations, using the environment as a weapon. Making the enemy afraid and uncertain. A delegate from the Krell species stood. These tactics are barbaric, uncivilized. The Galactic Union has moved beyond such primitive methods. You moved beyond them because you didn't need them anymore, Daehyun replied. Your technology was so advanced that warfare became clean and distant. Automated ships fighting automated ships. Minimal casualties. Predictable outcomes. Exactly, the Krell said. We evolved past the need for brutality, and now you're losing, Daehyun said bluntly. The Vrax disabled your technology in minutes. They took away your advanced weapons, your automated defenses, your predictable strategies. What did you have left? Silence filled the chamber. No one wanted to admit he was right, but no one could argue with the facts. Earth never had the luxury of clean warfare, Daehyun continued. We evolved on a dangerous planet where everything tried to kill us. We fought each other for resources, for territory, for survival. We learned every brutal lesson that warfare had to teach. And yes, it was terrible. Yes, it was savage. But it also made us survivors. The council speaker leaned forward. What exactly are you proposing, Corporal? I'm not proposing anything, Daehyun said. I'm just telling you the truth. If you want to defeat the Vrax, you need to learn how to fight without your technology. You need to learn adaptability, improvisation, and persistence. You need to learn what humans already know. Another delegate stood. You want us to become more like humans? To embrace your violent history? I want you to survive, Daehyun said. The Vrax are planning a massive invasion of your core systems. When they attack, they'll disable your technology first. Your fleets will be helpless. Your automated defenses will fail. You'll be fighting with whatever's left. And if you don't know how to fight dirty, how to adapt, how to never give up no matter how bad things get, you'll lose. The chamber erupted in debate. Some delegates argued for rejecting human methods entirely. Others insisted they had no choice. The argument went on for hours, but Daehyun could see the tide slowly turning. Fear was a powerful motivator, and the Union was afraid of the Vrax. Finally, the council speaker called for order. The council has decided, she announced. We will establish a new military division focused on adaptive tactics and unconventional warfare. This division will be led by human advisors and will train soldiers from all Union species. She looked directly at Daehyun. Corporal, you are hereby promoted to commander. You will lead this new division, which we are calling the Terran Tactics Corps. You will have full authority to recruit personnel and develop training programs. Daehyun felt the weight of that responsibility settle on his shoulders. This was what he had wanted, wasn't it? Recognition for humanity, proof that Earth had value to offer the galaxy. But now that he had it, he understood the real cost. "I accept," he said. Over the next 3 months, the Terran Tactics Corps took shape. Bora became Daehyun's second-in-command, handling logistics and training coordination. Dr. Hana joined as the chief xeno-warfare specialist, studying how different species could adapt human tactics. Even Tak requested a transfer, becoming one of the first non-human graduates of the new program. They trained soldiers from dozens of species in techniques the galaxy had forgotten. How to move silently, how to set ambushes, how to use simple weapons when advanced ones failed, how to think like a guerrilla fighter instead of a frontline soldier, how to be unpredictable, adaptable, and absolutely relentless. Many students struggled with the concepts. They had been raised in peaceful societies where violence was rare and always controlled. The idea of fighting dirty, of using deception and fear as weapons went against everything they believed. But some understood. Some saw the value in what humans had learned, and slowly the Union military began to change. Late one night, Daehyun sat in his quarters recording a message to Earth. He wanted his family to understand what was happening, what he was building. "Mom, Dad," he said to the camera, "I know you worried when I joined the military. You worried more when I volunteered for the Union forces. You were right to worry. It's been hard. But I think we're making a difference now. The galaxy ignored humanity for 50 years. They thought we were weak because we came from a violent world. They didn't understand that our violence taught us survival, that our wars taught us strategy, that our hardships taught us to never give up. Now they're learning. They're learning that being underestimated is sometimes the greatest advantage. They're learning that technology isn't enough if you don't have the will to use it. They're learning to think like humans. I don't know if we'll win this war. The Vraks are strong and determined, but at least now we have a chance. At least now the galaxy understands what Earth can offer. At least now when people think about humans, they don't just see weakness. They see survivors." He ended the recording and looked out his window at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Vraks were coming. Intelligence suggested they would attack within 6 months. The Union was preparing as best they could, implementing new tactics, training new soldiers, learning to fight like humans. 6 months later, the Vraks launched their invasion. It was massive, just as predicted. Hundreds of warships attacked the Union capital system, their electronic warfare systems ready to cripple the defenses. And they did cripple the automated systems. The Union's technology failed just as it had on the Sovereign's might. For a moment it seemed like the Vraks would win easily, just as they had planned. But this time the Union soldiers didn't panic. They didn't freeze when their technology failed. They switched to backup plans, to manual controls, to the old ways of fighting that humans had taught them. They adapted. They improvised. They fought with a determination the Vraks had never seen from them before. The battle lasted 3 days. It was brutal and costly, with thousands of casualties on both sides. But when it was over, the Vraks' advance had been stopped. For the first time in the war, they had failed to achieve their objective. Daehyun stood on the command deck of the Union flagship, watching the Vrak ships retreat. Around him, officers from a dozen species worked together, using the tactics his corps had taught them. They had won. Not easily, not cleanly, but they had won. Commander Velthar approached him. The Krell officer had fought in the battle, commanding a cruiser squadron with tactics he would have considered barbaric a year ago. "We did it," Velthar said. "We actually stopped them." "This time," Daehyun said, "they'll be back. They'll adapt to our new tactics. We'll have to adapt again. That's how war works. It's a cycle. Then we'll keep adapting," Velthar said. "That's what you taught us. That's what humans do best." Daehyun looked around the command deck at all the different species working together. He thought about the cost of this victory, the lives lost, the violence unleashed. He had taught the galaxy how to wage war again. He had reminded them of tactics they had tried to forget. Was that good? Had he saved the galaxy or just made it more dangerous? He didn't know. Maybe he would never know. But he had done what he set out to do. He had proven that humans mattered, that Earth had value beyond what the galaxy had believed, that being underestimated was sometimes the greatest gift you could receive. Through the viewport, he could see Earth in the distance. A small blue world that had produced survivors. Warriors who knew how to fight when everything seemed hopeless. People who understood that the greatest victories often came from the darkest moments. The enemy had ignored him. They had let him fight because they didn't think one human could matter. Those had been their first and greatest errors. And now the entire galaxy knew what happened when you underestimated humanity. The war would continue. There would be more battles, more losses, more hard choices. But for now, in this moment, Earth and humanity stood as equals among the stars. And that was worth everything.